Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel Trading Secrets. This channel is for entertainment purposes only. For those of you who do not know, my name is Ali. I have over 20 years experience teaching accounting, economics, business and law through this channel. I'll be providing some stock analysis and a quick update on the $1 Million Challenge. So if anybody's not aware of this is a journey an investment of $1,000 to a return of $1 million over a period of 3 years using a strategy called compound return investing. So the objective is try to get 201 trades, each an average return of 3.5%. It's not 201 consecutive trades. We do take into account losses. So for further details about how to join us for less than $9 a month, information is available in the description below. In today's video, we're going to be looking at MMTLP and another deep dive into FINRA with new evidence looking at how and why we did not get the missing resolution. And we're also going to be looking at tick symbol PI and also doing an update on tick symbol ARM, which was featured in the previous video. So go ahead and check that out. And so before we get started, let's have a look at what's happening in the market. So first headline here from CNBC, we can see, first of all, last week was a very, very difficult week and one of the worst trading weeks for a long time. However, the Dow is ripping more than 350 points higher as the market is now clawing back some of the previous week's losses. So good news today. And if we have a look at the key indices here, we can see US stocks futures are pointing higher as investors are now waiting on CPI inflation data as well as the Apple iPhone event. And again, we can see all green there. And shout out here to investing.com, who've stated that Citi say that the Fed is expecting to cut interest rates by 125 BPS over the rest of 2024. Now that does sound like good news, so we will have to wait and see. And finally, again, another big week for earnings, and the ones that we will be focusing on today after hours, Oracle. Then we have GameStop, and another one, big one I think will be Thursday after market, which will be Adobe. I'd like to give a shout out and special appreciation for Marcos for one of the best deep dives into the FINRA fraud and also uncovering the evidence behind FINRA and what has happened, or should we say what has not happened with regard to us not getting our resolution. So let's make a start on looking at each thread. So go ahead and check this out for much more detail. So I'm just going to present a small summary of this, but the detail that Marcos has provided, I think everybody should go ahead and read. So he's basically stated, first of all, here in the first part of his thread, that FINRA's actions or lack of thereof, data and available information can reveal what's happening inside the organization without getting on the inside. So that he has carried out a significant amount of research. So his list of topics here we can see range from fundamental questions, the UPC members, the UPC halted notices, deep dive, and much more. So we're going to try and go through as much as we can. So let's start with part 3 and what is stated here in terms of this section. We're looking at fundamental questions about MMTLP. So first of all, what parties provoked FINRA to create and list MMTLP for trading on the OTC, which we know was against the company interest, and I think even FINRA would not deny that. The second thing is what process, including exemptions, was used to list MMTLP to trade on the OTC market. So again, another question that was not answered in the FINRA FAQs, and another question here that was also not provided to Congress. So he also goes on to say, why did FINRA halt MMTLP without a clear plan to resolve the extraordinary settlement issues? And he does go ahead and review previous halts, and almost every single one have got a common theme which we're going to look at. Why did FINRA, in accordance with Rule 6490, which I think almost everybody knows about, not deem the corporate action deficient, which they should have? And number 5, what is the aggregated audited share count for the MMTLP shares, which I think is one of the most common questions asked. And then going on, first of all, in part 4, the UPC committee, first of all, this is something that oversees the implementation and interpretation of the Uniform Practice Code, and they aim to simplify day-to-day operations, prevent disputes, and remove obstacles to smooth functioning of the market. So I think probably not quite an ironic statement there. And what he states here in terms of what the committee are not, they do not function like a legal court in issuing binding legal judgments. Instead, they provide interpretations and rulings concerning the UPC and FINRA rules. So obviously remember, they're not legally have a legal background like a court. And in 4.1, he's talking about the UPC members in 2022. So first of all, these members provided guidance and recommendations on UPC matters to ensure market transparency and fairness, or I should say allegedly, and all 8 member firms in the UPC committee were directly or indirectly involved in the trading of MMTLP. So I think here lies the question of significant conflicts of interest and also substantial evidence of that as well. And in section 5, he's talking about here the metamaterials instructions. So the PR and obviously was provided, and so according to the PR, shareholders of record as of December the 12th 2022 would receive shares of Nextbridge Hydrocarbons in exchange for the MMTLP shares. So it was 1-for-1, and the distribution was supposed to happen on December the 14th 2022. Metamaterials stated that all Series A preferred shares would be cancelled, and the most important point was that there was no ex-dividend date, and obviously we do know that it never actually played out like this. So moving on to section 6, which is about the FINRA filings, he goes on to state, in terms of corporate actions, FINRA posts corporate actions to the daily list to ensure that investors, brokers and the market have timely and accurate information with regard to significant events that impact securities. So and then in section 6.1, with regard to metamaterials and the preferred Series A share, MMTLP and corporate actions, what happened here is that FINRA published the first corporate action on its daily list on December the 6th 2022. Some of the instructions matched the company's wishes, but some of the language used was dissimilar to the issuer's filings, creating a lot of confusion. So it looks like significant changes were being carried out by FINRA. And again, it goes on to say, purchases of MMTLP executed after the 8th of December 2022 will not receive the distribution, will not be quoted MMTLP shares, and will be cancelled effective 13th of December 2022. And then obviously we know about the symbol MMTLP will be deleted effective 13th of December 2022. So this was the key concern. And then if we now move on to section 7, which is the reason for the deep dive. First of all, the trading and quoting halt will end and concurrent with the deletion of the symbol effective Tuesday, December the 13th, 2022. So there's a quotation. And after better understanding the UPC's committee role, Marcos was disturbed by the sentence, which we've just seen, and the sentence does not protect his investors in any way. So I think I would second that. And initially it did look like Congress were behind that, but it seemed to have gone very, very quiet. So he's looked at the entire UPC data here in section 8, we can see. And then if we go ahead and look at something, I think in under 8.6, which I think is now getting much, much more interesting. So keep an eye on the images on the left and notice that the headings halt, reason, next notice resume trading, halt, reason, resume trading. So one more notice, this is the last notice we are looking at before I show you the MMTLP notice. So remember, there are 14 of these. They will always have the section discussing the halt and give us a reason for most of the notice, and lastly they will inform the market and how and when it will resume trading. So if you remember, almost all of the MMTLP community, as soon as this halt happened, we're talking about when is trading going to resume. So that is because it almost always has resumed in these halts. So let's have a look at 8.8, which is a UPC halted time frame comparison. So all of those stocks there, we have the resolution date, we have the halt date and the time to resolution, and highlighted in yellow at the bottom, MMTLP, approximately 638 days, still unresolved, but everything else is resolved. So that's the comparison. Most of the halts were resolved within days, very, very quickly, 1 day, 2 day, 5 days. MMTLP associated with notice 3522 remains unresolved to this day. So the length of the unresolved halt stands alone compared to the others, which typically have clear resolutions, and MMTLP does not have a resolution, which is what we are looking at. And then if we go on here to 9, he's talking about the UPC committee possible rules broken. So these are the rules that were broken. So again, go ahead and check the post out for much more details on these rules. But what I have done here in this image is summarized all of the rules here in one slide. And I've stated here, although he's not a lawyer, Marcos has uncovered these 11 rules, and these are in addition to Rule 6490, allegedly being broken by FINRA and its UPC committee. So go ahead and check out those rules. They were ranging from Rule 2010, 2020, all the way down to UPC Rule 11820, selling out. But bear in mind that Marcos is not a lawyer. And then moving on to section 10, the price of silence, erosion of trust and the future of market integrity. MMTLP case reveals a troubling reality. The systems designed to protect investors can be manipulated. So we have certainly seen that, and the silence from FINRA and the SEC, and I would also add Congress, in the face of overwhelming evidence is deafening, fueling further suspicions and exacerbating damages. And I think we're talking about damages to livelihoods, to people, and unfortunately we have had a number of deaths, and those families also need this to be fixed and resolved. And finally, the final message at the end: if this is left unaddressed, these failures will have far-reaching implications. Investor confidence will continue to erode, and the time for accountability is now. A thorough and independent investigation into FINRA's actions, free from conflicts of interest, is certainly essential. So if you notice some of the people creating FUD, they have absolutely nothing to do with MMTLP, but they spend hours and hours, and almost every day, just trying to attack the MMTLP community, and one of them, I'm sure you know, is an elephant. Finally, before we move on to have a look at tick symbol PI, again shout out to the previous video, and in our stock news channel we talked about ARM and its deal with Apple. So if we have a look at the response in terms of the chart today, what I posted with regard to ARM and yesterday's video, check it out. But today ARM at time of editing was up in excess of 7%, so I think it was earlier at a great price for a long-term hold. So keep an eye on tick symbol ARM. And the next stock I'd like to share with you is tick symbol PI, also known as Impinj, and we shared in our DD channel information with regard to the overall profile, and there was some news as well which we're going to share. But first of all, let's have a look at how it's done today. So again, you can see time of editing, PI is up in excess of 10%, currently at $172.98. So in terms of the company, this is a provider of referral and information network radio frequency identification solutions, not only to retail but pharmaceutical, healthcare, food and beverage, as well as other industries, and again with a significant AI background as well. But let's also now have a look at the latest news. So from PI Newswire here, we can see there are a number of companies that are joining the S&P 500. We talked about Palantir and others, and then we have the S&P Mid Cap 400, but PI is joining the S&P Small Cap 600. So that's the catalyst, and this was also a catalyst shared in our stock news channel. Finally, if you would like to get DD and advanced information with regard to breaking news and stocks, as well as a copy of our daily stock alerts, details are in the description below. Thank you very much for watching. Please stay tuned.